As a local resident of the GTA and someone who goes to school in Toronto, I care a lot about local film. It so happens that one of our local film festivals is the largest in the world. It's the Toronto International Film Festival. For those of you who are about to say it's Cannes only has 80,000 attendees to TIFF's 480,000. Cannes may be more pretentious, but that's a whole other discussion. TIFF has been known for being a launching pad for lots of Oscar hopefuls, which come out in the fall and winter just in time for Oscar qualifying. This is important because the TIFF People's Choice Award has been a good predictor of Best Picture winners, or at least films that win an above the line Oscar in either acting, directing, or writing, or also Best Picture. Unfortunately, last year, The Fabelmans 2022 People's Choice winner at TIFF went home without any Oscars, being the first to do so since 2007. It wasn't the only acclaimed film festival film to go home empty-handed, as both Tar and Banshees had no wins. Now The Fabelmans was a Best Picture nominee, but I'm personally starting to think that, as many other critics have observed, the Oscars are not awarding films that really reach out to more populist crowds. In some ways, Everything Everywhere All at Once was an exception, but it wasn't really designed for mainstream audiences like Top Guns or The Fabelmans, or even stubs like Glass Onion and The Woman King were. And to some extent, even The Whale, which was more meant for wide audiences, underperformed at the Oscars. Recent big Oscar movies like The Power of the Dog, Coda, All Quiet, and Everything Everywhere rely more directly on their critical acclaim and awards prestige. TIFF certainly can add to that, and no one should scoff at the power of TIFF People's Choice, but I think that it may be a award that is more consistently going to a film that doesn't try to do as well at the Oscars. Even though the films that have been winning clearly are made to try and win Best Picture, they are still films that I think will continue to underperform. Let's take a look at the Oscars history with TIFF films and the People's Choice and see how the TIFF People's Choice winners' films have done at the Oscars. I'm going to start at the 21st century because it was when the relationship between TIFF People's Choice winners and Best Picture was becoming more solid. Though the first People's Choice winner to win Best Picture was back in 1981 with Chariots of Fire. American Beauty became the second People's Choice winner in Best Picture and would become a lot more common. The House Cider Rules also had its world premiere at TIFF this year before being nominated for Best Picture, so TIFF had 2 of the 5 Best Picture nominees. This year, only one of the 5 Best Picture nominees was at TIFF, with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon being the Best Picture nominee, which also took the People's Choice Award. And then they also had 4 wins, including Best Foreign Language Film. It continues the trends of People's Choice winners being strong at the Oscars, but it would die down for a few years. Only one Best Picture nominee was at TIFF this year, with Todd Field's In the Bedroom, which did not win People's Choice. Amelie won People's Choice and picked up a nomination for Best Foreign Language Film and 4 other nominations, including Adapted Screenplay and Cinematography. Literally none, not a single Best Picture nominee was at TIFF. The Two Towers was a theatrical epic, Chicago was a Christmas-dated musical, The Pianist didn't get a wide release until January the following year, and Gangs of New York was too Scorsese to show up at TIFF. As in, none of Martin Scorsese's work has been a TIFF selection. The People's Choice winner was a New Zealand film called The Whale Rider, which did grab a Best Actress nomination at the Oscars, but nothing else. This is a trend you'll see a little bit more as we go through these Best Picture nominees that were at TIFF. We got one back with Lost in Translation, which was not a People's Choice winner. That year, it was a Japanese action film called Zatoichi, but it did not get any Oscar nominations. We again have 2 out of the 5 Best Picture nominees, with Ray and Sideways being TIFF selections. They were also both world premieres, but neither won out for the People's Choice Award, which went to Hotel Rwanda, which got 3 nominations, 1 for actor, original screenplay, and supporting actress, winning none of them. For the first time, they had 3 out of the 5 Best Picture nominees at TIFF, with the eventual winner Crash, which was actually at TIFF in 2004, the year previous, but didn't actually come out until the spring of 2005, before going through the year's awards cycle and ended up being the upset to Brokeback Mountain, which got a People's Choice runner-up mention, along with the other film at TIFF that got nominated for Best Picture that year was Capote, which got Philip Seymour Hoffman a well-deserved Oscar. The winner of People's Choice in 2005 was Tesoti, a South African film which won the Oscar for Foreign Language Film. After getting 3 out of 5, we go back down to 1 Best Picture nominee at TIFF with Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu's Babel. Bella won the People's Choice Award and got 0 Oscar nominations. This year yielded the highest percentage of Best Picture nominees ever that were also TIFF selections, but none of them were People's Choice winners, which was actually the Canadian body horror legends film Eastern Promises, directed by David Cronenberg. It can be hard to compete with the hometown crowd sometimes. TIFF 2007 did have future Best Picture winner No Country for Old Men, along with Atonement, Michael Clayton, and Juno, which was a runner-up for the People's Choice Award. The only one that wasn't there was There Will Be Blood. This marked a long stretch where the Best Picture winner was almost always a TIFF, a trend that subsides more recently today. You only get one Best Picture nominee, but it's also the Best Picture winner in Slumdog Millionaire, which also won the People's Choice Award, the first to do so since American Beauty. There's a strong showing for TIFF this year at the Oscars with 5 nominees, but it's also the first year the nominees go up to 10, aka the expanded era, which usually only had 8 or 9 at the end of the day. But still, 5 out of 10 is pretty good. It again had the Best Picture winner with The Hurt Locker screening at TIFF, along with An Education, A Serious Man, Up in the Air, and Precious, which was the one that took home the People's Choice Award, and also won an Above the Line Oscar for Best Supporting Actress and Adapted Screenplay. Not as strong as last year, but the People's Choice winner and the Best Picture winner line up again, with The King's Speech taking home the big prize, along with wins for directing, lead actor, and writing. Black Swan and 127 Hours are also TIFF selections and go on to be Best Picture nominees to get a total of 3 out of 9 Best Picture nominees at TIFF. Almost identical to the year before, but the People's Choice winner is not at the Oscars. But the future Best Picture winner is at the Oscars, with The Artist making its North American premiere, along with Best Picture nominees The Descendants and Moneyball. TIFF selects 3 out of 9 Best Picture nominees, while the People's Choice Award goes to a Lebanese film called Where Do We Go Now? Did not get any Oscar nominations. The future Best Picture winner comes to TIFF again, with Argo making a world premiere at TIFF and placing second in People's Choice voting behind the winner, Silver Linings Playbook, which would also go on to secure a win for Best Actress, which went to Jennifer Lawrence. TIFF also screened More, which won Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars, getting 3 out of 9 Best Picture nominees at TIFF. The trend continues as TIFF gets 3 out of 9 Best Picture nominees again, but more importantly, it has the winner again in 12 Years a Slave, which won the People's Choice Award and Best Picture. Honestly, hard to see this winning considering how brutal it is to watch, but people clearly felt the need to be rewarded. Dallas Buyers Club would go to TIFF and ultimately be nominated for Best Picture, also getting Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto acting wins. And Philomena played there, picking up the runner-up spot in People's Choice voting at TIFF 2013. Again, 3 Best Picture nominees at TIFF, but no Best Picture winner at TIFF, and only 8 Best Picture nominees for this year. The Imitation Game went on to grab the People's Choice win and would secure an Adapted Screenplay win over Whiplash, which was also at TIFF, and lost Best Actor to The Theory of Everything, which was also a TIFF selection. Once again, we have 3 out of the 8 Best Picture nominees as selections at TIFF. The winner spotlight is there, although it only gets 3rd in People's Choice voting behind the winner, which is Room, which goes on to get a Best Actress win for Brie Larson. The Martian, another Best Picture nominee, would also world premiere at TIFF that year. 2016 finally breaks the trend of having 3 Best Picture nominees at TIFF. TIFF ends up selecting 5 of the 9 future Best Picture nominees, and future winner Moonlight, which had to overcome initially losing to La La Land, which won People's Choice at TIFF, and then also won Best Picture for 10 minutes before that whole debacle. But La La Land still wins Best Director and Best Actress, securing another Above the Line win for a TIFF People's Choice winner. Lion is the runner-up for People's Choice and was at TIFF, and Arrival and Manchester by the Sea, which got 2 Oscar wins, are also at TIFF that year. TIFF again selected 5 out of the 9 Best Picture nominees, with future Best Picture winner The Shape of Water screening, but not even placing in People's Choice. 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri won the People's Choice Award and went on to get a Best Actress win for Frances McDormand at the Oscars. A trend you're kind of seeing here. Best Actress winners would show up at TIFF. Lady Bird and Darkest Hours also screened at TIFF, along with Call Me By Your Name, which placed 3rd in People's Choice voting at TIFF 2017. TIFF again unites the Best Picture winner with their People's Choice winner, as Green Book takes both of those awards. It also has 2 other TIFF selections that year, getting Best Picture nominations with A Star is Born and Roma, which placed in 3rd in the People's Choice runnings, 3 out of 8 for the year. Another 5 out of 9 year, which ties TIFF 2017 and 2022 for most TIFF selections as Best Picture nominees. Parasite won Best Picture, but was only 3rd in voting for the People's Choice Award. The actual winner of the People's Choice that year was Jojo Rabbit, which was a Best Picture nominee and won Best Adapted Screenplay. Other TIFF selections in Best Picture include Marriage Story, Ford vs. Ferrari, and Joker. The pandemic year didn't completely stop TIFF from getting Best Picture nominees as their selections, as they ran online screenings, and 3 of them were Best Picture nominees. They again correlate their People's Choice winner with the Best Picture winner, Nomadland, which also won Best Actress for Frances McDormand. Seems people like her in People's Choice films. It would be the last time a People's Choice winner won Best Picture to the present day, but they also had The Father and Sound of Metal screen, and Sound of Metal was actually a TIFF in 2019, but was released in 2020 for Oscar contention. A solid 4 out of 9 nominees are there, though for the first time since 2015, there is no Best Picture winner among the TIFF selections. Dune was the biggest winner of the Oscars, despite not actually being eligible for TIFF People's Choice Award. Drive My Car screened, The Power of the Dog screened, and got 3rd in People's Choice, but ultimately lost to Belfast, which took home the People's Choice Award and an original screenplay win at the Oscars. We're all caught up now, but this is also the first time that a TIFF People's Choice winner didn't get an Oscar win in above-the-line category since 2011. The Fabelmans takes the People's Choice win in 7 Oscar nominations, Best Picture among them, but doesn't win a single one. Still, TIFF has 5 out of the 10 Best Picture nominees, tying for the strongest TIFF showing in Best Picture. Women Talking grabs the runner-up prize for People's Choice and goes on to win a Best Adapted Screenplay award. The other films that were TIFF selections that were in Best Picture were The Banshees of Inisherin, Triangle of Sadness, which didn't win anything, and All Quiet on the Western Front, which actually won the most by far at TIFF this year with 4 Oscars. So, does the People's Choice winner still matter to the Oscars? Well, yes and no. My feeling based on last year's results is that certainly as a big film festival, acclaimed films will always be at TIFF. And some of them will definitely get nominated for Best Picture. In fact, we may even see more films go into festivals that ultimately get nominated for Best Picture, as it seems they are driving more and more away from blockbuster films, even though usually a couple and ultimately get in. With The Fabelmans, what I witness is that a film that has the Best Picture chance to win the People's Choice will always be pushed by big studios to have a lot of screenings, especially if they have big directors behind them, like The Fabelmans obviously did, with Steven Spielberg actually being there, and The Fabelmans being his first film at TIFF. They had 4 screenings in some of the biggest venues, and as a result, a lot of TIFF goers got to see it. Even if they saw a lot of other films, which some of them probably didn't, they were likely to vote for The Fabelmans because of how big it was. It was a well-liked movie, and some of them probably had less competition for their votes. Plus, it appealed directly to film fans, which in theory should translate to the Academy in some capacity, because I think films like Coda and Everything Everywhere would have had a very good chance to win at TIFF, with the latter being something I think would have easily won. But those kinds of films are rare, and even more indie these days. I look at things like Past Lives or even Moonlight, and well, one of those didn't even go to TIFF, the other didn't even land in People's Choice. And we're seeing that more and more now. I mean, just look at La La Land. That was a front runner all year. It won People's Choice and ultimately lost. Nomadland kind of lucked out because despite being a really small film, it was in a pandemic year. And honestly, I think it might be the end of an era for how the Oscars line up with TIFF. I think that TIFF People's Choice winners will continue to be at the Oscars, and most likely in Best Picture, but I don't think we'll see them take home big prizes as much. The fact of the matter is, they're moving away from big films. The fact is, TIFF goes for those bigger, crowd-pleasing films, and I think with how the Academy's going, unless there's a special film like Everything Everywhere All at Once, they'll probably become more niche in a lot of ways, and especially as the Academy becomes more diverse, the old people kind of die out or leave, that we'll see more niche tastes come into the Oscars ultimately. And I don't think people's choice will always reflect that.